we're creating this online community, and it's all based in sensuality, embodiment, sexuality, the taboo, etc., orgasms, pleasure, intimacy, relating, all the things. And I had asked people on my Instagram, which if you don't follow us, you definitely should, at Madame Bickham and at Tantric Design. And we were talking about orgasms, and this gentleman wrote in, and this is something we've both heard from men, who we both work with men and women in the field of sexuality. And I'm going to read to you what he says, and then we both have a couple things to say about it. Yeah? So he says, since you're talking about orgasm, I've been researching why some men can get hard but may not orgasm, or it may take hours. I know for many reasons why this occurs. Medication, stress, insecure age, loss of feeling, but no solutions to help men come faster. You would think some women would want a man who can last, but the truth is most don't. The irony is young men are made fun of for being small and getting off in 5 minutes, but when you're of a healthy size and last, it becomes the reverse problem. I'm curious on what your thoughts are. So, Tamar and I had both different, very valid initial perspectives on this. And why don't you start with what your initial perspective is?
Well, my initial perspective is that women are conditioned in a way by society, by growing up, by porn, by just, how people talk about sex, how we share about sex. And it's a very goal-oriented act. And the goal, it doesn't feel as if you have reached your goal if there hasn't been an orgasm. Well, hopefully you're already in, the situation where you believe both should have an orgasm, but at least the man should finish. Like the arrival of the sperm
is the celebration.
It's the end, it's the fireworks, it's the da-da-da-da-da.
I did my job, I'm worthy, I made you come, that means I'm a good lover.
Yeah. And now I receive your semen, and
it doesn't really matter about me as much. Of course, obviously I would love to come, but as long as I do you the service, you're happy and I'm happy.
Yeah, and it's a clear ending, right? It's that's the end. Maybe it can go again. It
takes a little bit of time. Some men more than longer. Yeah.
And then, but it's like a clear finishing point.
Yeah.
And what you say, I think, also a celebration for both parties.
I mean, I remember the first time I was with a guy who didn't come. I thought there was something wrong with me. I was like, "What? You're not gonna do that thing you do," And he was like, "No." And this was my first polyamorous lover. Interesting fact. And he was like, I feel satisfied, I'm good. And I'm like, and I was satisfied. He was good. I was definitely satisfied. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, no, I don't feel like I need to. And I'm like, do you ever? This is my first kind of questions. I'm like, do you ever? And he's like, I feel like when I do, I lose energy. And, I want to keep my energy. He wasn't necessarily tantric or didn't talk about tantric practices. Like, he was a normal guy, but had already done a lot of studying on this type of way of energy and energy moves. And I did think, I would definitely feel like I wasn't sexy enough, he didn't like my pussy enough, I didn't perform enough, whatever. And this is where, Tamar, you said, it's like goal-oriented, very performance-driven. And this is both painful for men and women. We don't know any other way because we're not taught. That's why we're here. But this is kind of how we go.
Yeah. I was thinking while you were sharing this story, who was my first experience, and I think it was in Thailand with a tantric lover on my birthday, actually, which is coming up. Haha! And I didn't feel like that. I felt very satisfied that it took so much longer, and the whole act was like it took hours and hours and hours and hours, and I was impressed and blessed by that. Yeah. And so I can't really remember because it is like 6-7 years ago, but I wasn't. Yeah, I didn't bring up feelings of I did something wrong.
Yeah, I was confused. I mean, I'd had it happen other times with not tantric men. And sometimes it does happen. Sometimes men are just too in their head. And honestly, like, please stop fucking me if you're thinking about your ex or your whatever. You know, this never happens to me anymore, but it did. I remember, like, years ago, it would happen every once in a while. It was very weird if a guy didn't come. It was like, you're actually not present with me. You're too in your mind and you're not actually present with me. This guy was just a non-tantric lover without using all the fancy words. But yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you with the...
But there is something, and that's the physiological part. I remember with my ex-partner, who was very, very tantric, that during my ovulation, you know, my whole pussy would be like wanting to get his semen, and he was clipped. So it was all fine, but
there's a biological.
There was a part in me that really wanted it.
Yeah, and this is where we start to come into more conscious, like, sexuality, right? Let's break down conscious sexuality for a moment, yeah? We have been programmed in unconscious sexuality. What does that mean? It means that we're just having sex because our animal is saying, yes, this is what we're supposed to do, but for hundreds of thousands of years, we primarily had sex for procreation. This was the reason we needed to continue. We would pop out like 7 fucking babies, you know? And nowadays, most of us don't want to procreate. Not every time we have sex, you know? Like, whereas before we had much fuller days, we were so busy just trying to survive that sex was truly, literally an act that we did to procreate. Now it's for recreation. So why are we still having sex in the way of procreation when actually most of us want it for recreation? And this is really important. So conscious sexuality means becoming aware of our biological animalistic nature and also our consciousness in what it is that we truly want in life. And so this is a whole nother topic, but we should do it on the responsibility, and I have a couple of videos, actually I'll link it above. There's men's responsibility in birth control because it's for so long been put on the women to be the ones that are responsible. And yes, we should also be responsible, and men should also be responsible as well.
Yeah. And so the other day I had a discussion in a Facebook group that I'm part of, and it was about semen retention, you know, how you bring that up with a new lover, how do you share that you really, like, for me it's an important part of my sexuality, that you are aware, at least aware, you know. I will never shame sperm. I mean, we're past the part that we should be shaming our blood, our semen, our juices, our things, you know. Let's embrace it and celebrate it for the next generation. And I love it if there is, what Amanda says, awareness around that there is the possibility to also not come. And then that's fine, actually. It's amazing. It's more than fine. It's preferable.
And we'll talk another video on all the reasons why.
Yeah.
But I think this is a good part 1. I like to leave cliffhangers. I think this is a good part 1. So part 1 of this series and answering this beautiful man's question, which, by the way, thank you so much for reaching out and sharing. We feel you. Is essentially rooted in our story of performance. That we have this story that we need to perform, and performance is what makes sex good. And this is actually driven in more disconnection than connection.
And you thought it was about something else, right?
Yep, and we're going to do that with her too.
Aren't you so smart?
I'm going to be smart, and we're going to have you part 2. So this is part 1. And click next on the video so that you can get part 2.
Isn't she smart?